Joe Biden, the man many blame for dragging the Democrats down last year, is at it again. And this time, it's nothing short of a political wildfire. The president, whose mental decline has been a constant weapon against the DNC, just admitted he had no involvement in issuing a wave of last-minute pardons. That's right, another ticking time bomb that could detonate right in the Democrats' faces before the midterms. But which pardons are we talking about? And just how bad could this get for the DNC? I've got all the explosive details. So, smash that subscribe button and let's get into it. There's a lot to unpack here. First up, here's Peter Doocy claiming that the only pardon Biden personally signed was Hunter Biden's.
Different. It looks authentic. In fact, if you look at the last name, it almost looks like the president was having a hard time spelling his last name there. Is this White House of the opinion that the only pardon that would count is one that the president signed himself?
It's very interesting. Very interesting props. If you want to bring them to my office later so I can take a closer look, I would like to do that. The president is making a good point when he discusses the usage of the auto pen. Who was running the country for the past 4 years?
It looks like the house of cards is finally starting to collapse. One by one, the corrupt Democrats who flourished under the Biden administration are being dragged into the spotlight. Those who took advantage of the president's mental decline to pull the strings behind the scenes are now being exposed, and now, brace yourself, Biden himself has spoken out in a recent interview. But here's where it gets interesting. The interview barely lasted 10 minutes before his staff abruptly cut it short. Why? Most likely because he was saying too much, revealing things they never wanted to see the light of day. So, what exactly did he say? Take a listen, and I'll be back with my thoughts.
Mr. Biden did not individually approve each name for the categorical pardons that applied to large numbers of people he and his aides confirmed. Rather, after extensive discussion of different possible criteria, he signed off on the standards he wanted to be used to determine which convicts would qualify for a reduction in sentence. Even after Mr. Biden made that decision, one former aide said the Bureau of Prisons kept providing additional information about specific inmates, resulting in small changes to the list. Rather than ask Mr. Biden to keep signing revised versions, his staff waited and then ran the final version through the auto pen, which they saw as a routine procedure.
So here's what it really means. Biden gave his staff a vague, open-ended framework for pardons, a blank check in bureaucratic ink. That opened the floodgates. Suddenly you've got names sliding in from every hallway back channel, and half the time Biden may not even have known who was being added. When word got out, the left scrambled to defend the move. It wasn't personal, it was categorical, they said. Some even tried to compare it to Trump and January 6th, as if we're talking about the same kind of blanket clemency. But that analogy collapses fast. Whatever was floated around Trump's late-term pardons centered on a single flashpoint. Biden's framework looks more like an all-you-can-pardon buffet of unrelated cases, and get this, I'm hearing that one of the names slipped onto the list was a judge who slammed kids with outrageous juvenile sentences in exchange for kickbacks from the for-profit lockups he sent them to. If that's true, it's beyond swamp, it's sewage. Up next, I'm rolling the next segment of the interview where Biden talks about his final night in office, and the deals he greenlit. On the way out. Buckle up.
At the January 19th meeting, which took place in the Yellow Oval Room of the White House residence, Mr. Biden kept his aides until nearly 10 p.m. to talk through such decisions, according to people familiar with the matter. The emails show that an aide to Mr. Siskel sent a draft summary of Mr. Biden's decision at that meeting to an assistant to Mr. Zients, copying Mr. Siskel at 10:03 p.m. The assistant forwarded it to Mr. Reid and Mr. Zients, asking for their approval, and then sent a final version to Ms. Feldman, copying many meeting participants and aides at 10:28 p.m. 3 minutes later, Mr. Zients hit reply all and wrote, "I approve the use of the auto pen for the execution of all the following pardons."
First things first, the claim that Biden held a late-night staff meeting that ran to 10 p.m.? Not so, according to multiple accounts placing the president already down for the night around 5 p.m. If that timeline holds, then whatever meeting happened later likely took place without him in the room. Which raises the alarm. Were key end-of-term decisions, including those last-minute pardons, pushed through by unelected staffers working in the shadows? If that doesn't rattle you, I don't know what will. Now for the shocker. Sources say the person who actually authorized the mass pardons wasn't Joe Biden, it was his chief of staff, Jeffrey D. Zients. The other names in the internal email chain? Reportedly aides scrambling to slide as many people onto the list as the clock ran out. But don't lose the plot. The green light, we're told, came from Zients. And that's where the spotlight shifts next. Why is this a breakthrough? Because if these pardons were issued without the president's explicit authorization, critics argue they're legally vulnerable, possibly even null and void under the constitutional requirement that clemency flow from the president alone. That cracks the door wide open for legal challenges, including from the Trump side, which could move to contest any questionable pardons in court. The fallout could be massive, and we're only at the beginning. For now, Democrats are finger-pointing internally as the story unravels. Stay tuned, I'm tracking every update.
I think it's sort of reflective of my experience when I was there.
Yeah.
That there was a culture of evasiveness when it comes to transparency. I said to your colleague Rachel Campos Duffy a couple weeks ago that they were allergic to transparency, and if you weren't stonewalling, if you weren't hiding the ball, it was usually a sign of betrayal or disloyalty to the Bidens. But I just don't think that this bunker mentality approach is helpful reputationally to the Bidens, to Dr. B, and to the president. They should be full disclosure, full transparency, showing that they have nothing to hide. This bunker mentality is sort of a way that people approached politics in the 90s, and it's just not sustainable in the media environment we live in.
That was the former chief of staff to First Lady Jill Biden publicly tossing fellow Democrats under the bus over the Joe Biden fiasco. Bold move. He's calling for full transparency, especially around the last-minute pardons signed in the final hours of the Biden administration, and he's not wrong. When voices from the president's own inner circle start sounding the alarm, we're past partisan spin. That's a red flag. This only adds fuel to long-standing allegations that, toward the end of Biden's presidency, he wasn't really running the show. He was a figurehead, a stooge propped up by power-hungry operators working the levers behind closed doors. Now that the seams are splitting, those same operators look like they're scrambling to cover their tracks while insiders turn on each other. If Biden didn't personally sign off on those pardons, who did? And even bigger, what else was done in his name without his knowledge? And he's not the only one calling Democrats out. Former President Barack Obama has done the same. Watch this.
Former President Barack Obama has a blunt message for his fellow Democrats. Quote, just toughen up. Stepping out for his first fundraising appearance since the Democrats' 2024 election loss, the former president had some tough love as his party continues to struggle to counter President Trump's agenda. He told donors this over the weekend, quote, I think it's going to require a little bit less navel-gazing and a little less whining and being in fetal positions, Obama said, according to excerpts of his remarks exclusively obtained by CNN. And it's going to require Democrats to just toughen.
Barack Obama is, in effect, calling out his own party, painting Democrats as weak, thin-skinned, and quick to fold under pressure. Like crybabies who can't take a punch. And honestly? He's not wrong. Some of us have been shouting this. For months, the party's obsession with identity slicing and its constant fear of offending the woke outrage machine was always going to blow up. We were dismissed, mocked, ignored. Now the warning comes from one of the party's most revered statesmen. Maybe this time the DNC listens. Because the current strategy of pandering to the far left isn't just tone-deaf, it's political self-harm. That weakness, critics argue, fed directly into the party's crushing 2024 election defeat, a shockwave that rattled Democrats nationwide. Stay on this trajectory and irrelevant stops being an insult and starts becoming a forecast. The clock is ticking. The country's watching. Your move, Democrats.
I'll also say, having read that speech that he gave, he was pretty scoldy. He is very scoldy these days. And he talked a lot about how people are not stepping up and doing their part and how people have been folding and not really standing up tall. And I just don't think that that goes down very well anymore. We saw that in the run-up to the election where he was sort of telling black men that they needed in solidarity to vote for a black woman. And I think that that kind of scoldy Obama really doesn't play to the Democratic base anymore.
And right on cue, Democrats rush to defend their own weakness, as if failure were a badge of honor. Predictable. They don't listen, and they don't learn. Any criticism, constructive or not, meets outrage, denial, and moral posturing. In their own telling, they're the nation's moral compass, beyond reproach, beyond accountability. Yet even Barack Obama, their most beloved modern standard-bearer, is urging a pivot back to the middle, common sense, connection with everyday Americans' real-world priorities. Are they listening? Not a chance, say critics. Instead, party insiders double down, clinging to the fringes of woke orthodoxy like scripture. Pronoun policing and virtue signaling take center stage while kitchen table concerns, inflation, the border, public safety, get background. Obama tossed them a lifeline. They let it sink. And when 2026 hits, don't be surprised if they're shocked again, and blaming everyone but themselves.
Many of your Democratic colleagues are facing angry voters back in their districts. According to Axios, some are even being told they need to be more willing to go out there and get shot when fighting. That was a direct quote, get shot when fighting back against some of Trump's policies. One House Democrat saying, quote, and I'll read it to you, our own base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough. There needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public. How do you respond to that, Leader Jeffries? Are Democrats not meeting the moment, not doing enough to fight these developments?
Well, we are in a more is more environment in terms of the unprecedented assault on the American way of life and our country that has been launched by Donald Trump and compliant House Republicans. More speeches, more rallies, more protests, more sit-ins, more press conferences, more town hall meetings in Democratic districts and Republican districts. We're in a more is more environment, and we'll continue to lean in aggressively.
Unfortunately, some Democrats have completely misread Obama's message, twisting his warning into a rallying cry to dig in even deeper. Instead of treating it as a wake-up call to embrace centrism and reconnect with everyday Americans, they've taken it as a threat to their so-called ideological purity. Rather than correcting course, they're doubling down on the same extremism that cost them so heavily in 2024. Even worse, voices on the far left have begun urging their leaders to shed blood, figuratively or otherwise, in defense of their woke agenda and pet reforms. Yes, you heard that right. They're demanding that the party go down swinging for an ideology the majority of Americans don't even support. That's not strategy. That's delusion. When a political movement is willing to self-immolate just to protect a fantasy, it stops being a party. It becomes a cult. Obama offered them wisdom, and they answered with madness.
Let me remind everybody who was out in the front lines marching when we had the giant marches that went on. It was the people. The people went out. They were not navel gazing. It was older people who were saying, why are you touching my Social Security? It was not people whining. It was about people saying, why are you taking these rights from my child when my child was born here? This has not been about Democrats laying back. This has been about y'all. This has been about y'all because their messaging was always the same.
And of course Whoopi Goldberg had to weigh in. I've watched her clip a few times and I still can't tell you what point she was trying to make. It plays like an emotional word salad, contradictions, tangents, the works. If you can decode it, do us all a favor and drop your translation in the comments, but Whoopi's reaction isn't unique. She's just one of many woke left voices now turning on Barack Obama for daring to scold them. The same man they once treated like political royalty is getting dragged for urging the party to use basic common sense. Instead of reflecting, they lash out. Instead of listening, they move to cancel. It's a snapshot of how the far-left machine operates, zero room for dissent, even from its own heroes. Step out of line and you're next, even if you're Obama, and that's a wrap for today's video. If you got value out of this breakdown, hit like, smash subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.